evening, everyone. My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Thank you all so very much for joining us, both in person and online. We're here to launch 3 new books from the Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Center's series of new books on the First Nations experience of residential school. And they're 3 wonderfully illustrated books by Dumas. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that, of course, we are gathered here in Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Inuit, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, in the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. I'd also like to extend sincere gratitude to Michael Hutchinson. When we were sitting down to talk about things that we could potentially do with the Resource Center, these books immediately came to mind. We're delighted to be launching them here tonight. So thank you, Michael. Now, just to give you a sense of how the evening will go, there'll be a few introductions and a reading from up here, and then they'll move along to a conversation at these chairs to my left. Your host will be up in a moment to introduce some of the participants as well. Following that, there will be an opportunity for all of you to ask questions. So during the Q&A, please let those questions kind of build over the night. If you do have a question, just put your hand up and I'll come over to you with the microphone. That's not because we don't trust you to project. It just ensures that everybody who's watching at home can hear the question as well. And I'll be back at the end for some exciting notes about signing procedures, so please do stand by for that. But for now, please join me in giving a very warm welcome to your host for the evening, Doris Ironstar.
Namia, yeah, the bedu, which they be down near the Doris Makiabe, Chinoopa, Wisteria. I welcome you all here tonight. I'm Nakota Cree from Chugigin First Nation in Saskatchewan, and I'm very proud of this book signing tonight. And I also want to acknowledge that when we first started this group, we had Elder Delayed Rebecca Ross and also Elder Virginia Arthurson, and they were both very instrumental in starting the process of the residential school education kit of Manitoba. Well, Manitoba residential school kit. And so, so I'd like to just welcome you tonight. I'd like for you to just sit back, listen to our conversation about Melody Dumas' books, and also to really listen to what her books are about and have really good questions about residential school, because that's part of our history, Canada's dark history. And it's really important for us to learn about that history so her books are based from K to 12. And so I'm really excited to get started. So with that, we'll start. And I'd like for Melody to introduce herself and Diane.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, I can't say. Melody Dumas na Disney Kasan. Fast Track Cree Nation, Equa, Cormorant, Nino Oshchit. So, hello, my name is Melody Dumas, and my father comes from a Pasqua Cree Nation and Cormorant, and my mom comes from Garden Hill, Red Sucker Lake. I've been working at the MFNERC for over 4 years, and I was an instructional resource developer, and I am currently an instructional resource analyst at the site.
Diane Powderhorn, hello, good evening. My name is Diane Powderhorn. I am Saisin Dena, and I come from Taduli Lake, the most northern community in Manitoba. Merci.
So tonight I want to, I also am an instructional resource analyst at Manitoba First Nation Education Resource Center. And also, we want to start off with, I'm just going to be asking a few questions to Melody and Diane. And so I'm going to start off with Melody, and I'm going to ask her to explain our chair here. If you notice, we have a chair here with a blanket and some moccasins on it, some beautiful moccasins on it. So I'll get her to explain why we do that when we're presenting this Manitoba residential school education kit.
So one of the first workshops that we had with the 3 books, we presented Wakana Maskisina, and an elder actually came up to us at the end of that presentation, and she said, this is very important topic for our people, and beginning to heal with the being taught the history. So she said, I was wondering, she said, if you could, when you're presenting these books, if you could put out a chair and put moccasins on that chair to represent the children that didn't make it home. She said, I think that would be an important part of teaching about residential school. And then she said you could put a little blanket there too, just for the feeling of the warmth and the comfort, and then the shoes to represent the children. So ever since then, we've made a point of placing the blanket and the moccasins on a chair during our presentations.
Thank you, Melody. And so Diane, I'm just going to ask you a quick question. What do you think it's important for First Nations to talk about, or what do you think it's important for us to talk about residential school here in Manitoba? And why is it important for the youth and students to learn about this in history?
It's important that everybody learns the history of what happened to First Nations people in Canada. The history is sad, it's horrific, and it's important everybody knows the truth of what happened, because for many years it wasn't told. Many people didn't know about it, and there's still people to this day that are still alive that went to residential school. I'm one of them. I'm a residential school survivor. And there's others like me that are still around. It's not ancient history that happened in my lifetime. And its effects are still happening. The intergenerational effects. I passed it on to my daughter, my grandchildren, everything. It's a sad history, but we all need to know. We all need to know what those buildings represented at one time in our lives.
Thank you, Diane. I myself am a residential school survivor, so I understand what she is saying, and I'm hoping that you will you'll listen as we carry on to our next section. We're going to be talking about, I'd like to ask both of Diane and Melody why do you think that your family's experience in residential school, and how did that inspire this project that you both worked on in the section in this residential school kit? So I'll go with you first, Diane.
Well, it's the experiences we had was like for myself, first time on a train at 13 years old. And it was my first time on a train and my first time away from the north. And it was scary. Being on that train from Churchill to Dauphin, there was a lot of kids on there, lots, trains, like rail cars. And I remember the little kids crying. And I felt, oh my God. And like pretty soon, like there's lot of kids crying. Because everybody was sad to be leaving home. And for us, like it was like, we don't see mom and dad anymore for a long time. We don't see our grandparents, our siblings, the ones that are at home. And it was separation. It was, even at the dorms, when we got there, we were separated by age. Junior dorm, intermediate dorm, junior high dorm, senior dorm, all by age, and separated boys and girls. My brother was there and I couldn't even talk to him because he's on the boys' side and I'm on the girls' side. So some of it is horrible, but we lived through it, and as tragic as it was, we lived through it.
Diane has her, I interviewed her, and it's part in the education kit as well. So she has her full interview in there, and she tells you more of the story of her experience there in her interview. So I'm going to go on with Melody, and Melody, I'm going to ask you what your family experience was, and what inspired you to write these books, and your inspiration in this project.
There's two things to that. The first one is my mom, and I'd actually like to acknowledge that she's sitting in the front row. That's my mom. And just turned 80 a few days ago, so we're very grateful that she's here tonight. The second one is being a classroom teacher for 20 years. I look at when everything started coming about with residential school, I tried to look for Manitoba-based stories, and it seemed like we had to go to different provinces. And I was thinking about my mom, and I thought, you know what, Manitoba also has its own stories. So that's where I got the inspiration, is from my mom, and also my mother-in-law, the late Diane Dumas. That's my husband's mom. And then my oldest son, his grandmother, and she was from Pukatawagan, and she went to Guy Hill residential school. So it affected my family, so I'm a second generation that was affected by residential school. And so that's where I got the inspiration for the stories, the 3 stories.
And you know, I was just, Melody and I were just up in La Roche, and I was thinking about just residential schools in the north, and they are totally far out. The children would have had to been flown out, and can you imagine being 3, 4 years old and just knowing that you're never gonna, probably never see your family again, some of them, you know, so. But I'm gonna go on here, and I'm gonna quote one of Melody's, when she was writing, one of her quotes really stuck out to me, and I want to share that with you tonight, and I want to ask her a little bit about that. So in her book, They Have Papers, she quoted, "Those who attended residential schools often suffered unspeakable punishments and abuse. I hope that by taking time to listen to or to read, they have papers. It will shed some light on a few of the atrocities that happened to our children that suffered. And so that quote really stuck out with me because of, all the, my hearing, family, like my parents are residential school survivors of Maryville Residential School and Five Hills Residential School. And I myself, I went to LeBret Residential School. So for us here, we're very passionate about it. It's more than just a project for us. It affects us deeply. And I know that for Melody, these books really connect to the community and all of us community. You don't have to be First Nation to have an effect of this, because it does affect you as well. So with that, I'm going to ask Melody to just talk a little bit about our residential school story. I'm going to go to that one first, and what got her thinking about writing that book. And yeah, so if you can give us a little bit of insight on that, that'll be nice.
Yeah, so our residential school story is actually the first story. This one's geared towards the young learners, kindergarten, nursery, kindergarten to grade 3. But I also state that if you feel your students are not ready for the 4 to 8 book, then it's okay to use this one. And our residential school story, I created it in a way that teachers that are teaching the younger grades could actually skip pages and make it suitable for their learners. The book, Our Residential School Story, came from this one teacher came to me, and I had been teaching kindergarten for 8 years, and she came to see me, and she said, how do you explain residential school to the small kids? She said, like, how can I explain it? She said, I don't know. They're questioning because of Orange Shirt Day. They're questioning, like, why is everybody wearing orange shirts? Like, what's the big meaning? She said, how can I do it in a good way? And I told her, I just explained to her that you need to do it full circle. You need to show them that what life was like before residential school. And then you can give them glimpses of the way the children were lonely and things that they missed. And then I said, but you need to bring it back to full circle, meaning there are schools in our First Nations now that kids don't have to, the young kids don't have to leave school. This book is geared for the younger ones, and I said, let them celebrate our beautiful schools and our First Nation teachers and all the teachers that are teaching our First Nation kids in our school. So she told me, she said, you should write a book. So that's where our residential school story came from. So when I joined the group that Director of Languages and Cultures created, the residential school group, working group, that's when I thought, you know what, that came back to me. And that's when I wrote the story, and I try to do it in a good way where kids, you don't want the students to feel scared to go to school, and to make sure that when you're teaching using that book, that it shows them how it was before, how it was when they were at home and when they left, but now we're at home again, and ways to celebrate themselves with that, and still learn about the residential school experience.
That's so awesome, because it goes full circle. We were talking about that earlier, and it's so we were talking about how it does go full circle with that. I'd like to talk about They Have Papers and how that book differs from your our residential school story. So I just want you to give a little insight on the difference of those two books.
So, They Have Papers is a story about two boys. And it begins with them having to leave and questioning why they have to leave. And the parent, I tried to put it where the readers would get that feeling of what the little boys were going through. And how when they were leaving, what they left behind, but teachings that the grandfather gave the older boy on what to do when he's experiencing loneliness. And I tried to do it in a way that, because the students are a little bit older, so I wanted the content to be more, I wanted them to feel and try to feel that experience that those children were going through, and they being young, and little things that happened to them. And you know what, like a lot of the story within through especially the last two books, I called upon experiences that my mom and my mother-in-law and my first mother-in-law, I tried to use bits and pieces of their experience so it would be a real experience. With the difference between the two books, it goes into a bit more detail. With the young ones, I try to keep it really simple and where they can still grasp that meaning of residential school. But with the grade 4 to 8, They Have Papers, there's more content in there for them to experience, feel for the children, and empathize and realize what those students were going through, what those children were going through.
Yeah, when you read the book, it's really powerful. When you know, for the early learning, it's so the words are very descriptive for young people to learn, and also it's very sensitive to just being sensitive to their age group, to their age. So with that, you know, she does an excellent job with that. And also with the older book too, it's like more, gives like more detail, but it doesn't get graphic or anything like that. So I thought like that was so awesome when I was reading it. And that's what I thought of, you know. And so my next question to Melody is, what is the meaning of your book, Walk in Our Maskisina? And how do you think the readers will react to that story?
I'll take a drink of water first for this one.
Yeah, it's a beautiful book.
So Walk in Our Maskisina. The word maskisina means shoes. So it's walk in our shoes. For this story, it really was a eye-opener for myself, because when I wrote this story, I wrote the first 5 chapters in one day, and then I thought, okay, I'm done, you know. And the next morning I went to work, and I like to put things aside for a little bit just so I can think about them. And I said, okay, what can I do next? And I don't share this very often, but I wanted to share it now because I know that the listeners will hear it. When I sat at my desk that morning, I did my prayer, and then I just, like, I asked the grandmothers and grandfathers to use me as to help our students. That's all. I always feel like that as a teacher, so that's included in my prayer. Well, you know, I was sitting in my cubicle by myself, and I was thinking, okay, what can I do? And it's just like a voice said, you're not done. You open your book, you're not done. Because out loud I said, what do you mean I'm not done? And there was nobody with me. and I was kind of taken aback a little bit, and I said, and that voice said, open your book. And so I opened it, and I went to the end of the chapter, and that's where the adult life chapter came in, and the elder life. It's almost like I was told that I still needed to finish that whole circle. So that's where the last two chapters of that book came in. Maskisina is meant for the older students because it does give more details but not graphic details. They're actually hints of some of the atrocities, like my mom said, that's what she called it, the atrocities that they suffered. So in it, I wanted to put some of that content in, but through hints of what went on. And I'm hoping that as teachers use this as a teaching tool, that they explore some of those hints that are in the book. I could have been graphic and said this and that, but that's not the way I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it where the readers, the teachers, or anybody can take that book and feel for these students that went through all the experiences that they did. So Maskisina is really close to my heart out of the three books, because I think it was because of the connection of the voice that got me to and guided me to finish writing that story.
And as First Nations, doesn't matter what nation we are, we're very connected to land, we're very connected to spirituality. And I heard one elder say, like First Nations, we're like one step away from Creator, because we acknowledge everything is living and everything is related. And when she was sharing with me that, I was like, wow, that's so powerful, and it's so wonderful to have that, because it's meant to be. It's meant to be created, and it's meant to be out there. So with that, I'm just going to move on to our next question here. And so Melody, your book builds on residential school experience, and you share a deep connection through your family's experience in residential school. So my next question is, why is it important for you to share their stories?
For that question, it's because I would like for our people in our schools and all the people who are across Canada, I'm hoping that this book actually can go across Canada, because when it was presented, people from other First Nations, from even out of Manitoba, could relate, because it's a story that all of our residential school survivors can relate to. Even if it's not all of it, it's bits and pieces of it.
That is like when she was sharing that earlier with me, it was like, I thought about, her in Saskatchewan, because that's where I'm from, in Jugakin First Nation. We, there's few stories, like a lot of the survivors do talk, and there is gatherings, but a lot of them don't want their stories told. And so we respect that. And so it's kind of nice to see her books, how they're written, because they're written gentle, they're written with care and sincerity. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that as well, and and acknowledge her mother here sitting with us. It's such a big honor to have her here with us to share and see what is being told, like what she shared to in these books that Melody had wrote. So my next question for Melody is, what was it like for you to write about your family's experiences? Was it, when you were writing about it, what was in your thoughts as you were writing these books?
You know, when writing these books, especially the last two books, they came with tears because I'm a grandmother now. I'm a mother and I'm a grandmother. I have 12 grandchildren. And what I did was, the way I tried to do it was I actually pictured one of my grandchildren in my mom's shoes, in my mom's age, and having the thought of sending one, like two of my children are here tonight, like what if I would have had to send them away at that age? But I was looking at my grandchildren only because they're at that age right now where the age my mom was sent. So it was with, I had to walk away a few times. I had to step away from the writing, but it always drew me back to complete the books.
So as you know, when she talks about that, it's a very sacred time for residential school survivors when they're healing. And through her mother's experience and what she shared with her and what she allowed her to write about, that really does help with the healing process as a residential school survivor. And with others, I can imagine, you know, what they have experienced and what they go through. So I'd like for Melody to just, if you can tell us about your writing process and if you could just read a small part of your, one of the books that you've on your own, if you could just chose one of the books and just give us a little short reading, so it'll give us a little insight about the book that you have written.
So when Doris asked me about this and Michael, I was trying to think of a part to write, and I actually decided to read chapter 1 because it's the beginning of the story of how of them getting ready to leave. So I'd like to go up there.
Yeah. Just. Yeah, it's very powerful book, and you know, just the process, just how she experienced reading it and how she wrote it and how everything came to her. It's just amazing. So let's just give a listen here.
So in this book, there are 7 chapters. I'm just going to read the chapter names. Chapter 1. So chapter 1 is called The Pickup. Chapter 2 is The Arrival. Chapter 3 is The School. Chapter 4, Going Home. Chapter 5, Teen Years. Chapter 6, Adult Life. And Chapter 7, My Life Journey. And the dedication on the front is to all the residential school survivors and their families, and in honor of all the children who didn't make it home. We will never forget you. Chapter 1, The Pickup. Take a deep breath. Inhale, exhale. Close your eyes, breathe. Clear your mind, relax. Open your eyes. I'm going to talk. Try to picture my words. Keep breathing. Inhale, exhale, relax. We will go back in time to the early 1950s. We are at an old log house. There are only sounds of Mother Nature at this house. There are some beautiful birch trees. You can hear the wind softly moving the leaves. The leaves are different colors and are gently falling to the ground. You can hear birds singing. Some geese fly by. You can hear children laughing. You can hear someone tanning hide. You can hear a bee buzzing by. You can smell Mom's duck soup out on the outside fire. You can see the moose hide stretched out. You think of the maskisina that will be made for winter. You can hear the children running. playing and talking to each other in their own language. You can feel the happiness and the contentedness in the air. In the distance, you hear a motor. It is a plane. Mom runs to grab you and holds you and your brother with such fierceness. No more laughter. No more sounds of happiness. Dad isn't tanning hide anymore. Your world seems at a standstill. Quietness. Keep breathing. You must breathe. Inhale, exhale. Strange men are there at your log house. They have papers. Mom and Dad can't read them. Another person is there with them. You can understand that man. He talks in your language. The man says that you and your brother must go with them. You are going to a school. Mom is crying. Dad is silent. Dad looks angry. He seems sad too, like he wants to say something. He remains quiet. The men stand there with their arms crossed, waiting. Mom takes you to your little cabin. You feel safer. She starts to throw a few of your clothes into a bag. She packs your good skirt. Then she packs your brother's bag. You can feel at the bottom of your stomach that something bad is happening. Your little brother is crying. He keeps trying to hold on to Mom's dress. The bags are ready. Your mom carries your brother outside while holding your hand. You start to cry too. You are 7 years old. Your brother's 6. You try to be strong. Your little brother's tears are hurting your heart. You can feel a single tear slide down your cheek. You brush it away. Just breathe. Inhale, exhale. Your dad tells you and your brother that you must go with these men to school, that when the weather turns hot, you will return to him and Mom. Your brother cries harder. You can't help it. You cry too. Mom is crying. Dad is holding her. She is holding on to you and your little brother. The man with the long black dress comes forward and pries your brother from your mom's arms. The other man takes your hand and leads you to the dock. Other families are there. Moms, dads, grandparents, and so many children. So many sad faces. So many crying people. They put all the children into the plane. It's big and noisy. No more birds singing. No more Mother Nature sounds. It's so loud. You can't even hear your brother cry. You can see children crying, but you can't hear them. You close your eyes and breathe. Inhale, exhale. It's cold. It's dark. You know things have changed. You just don't know how much.
Thank you, Melody. That was so, when I talked about earlier about her book being, being powerful, that is powerful. When you really listen and you really read it, the experience is like you're there, and it's such a, it's sad, but then again, it gives the children an idea of how isolated they were when they were taken to residential school. So with that, I think I'm going to ask Diane and Melody both a question. And I want to ask this question because I think that it's important for educators to know and teachers to know, why is it important for both of you? And I'll go with Diane first. Why is it important for you to deliver this in a gentle way? Why do we have to be gentle with this?
Because we have to remember that children are children, they're small, and for something like this, it's very heavy, very, very heavy. And you don't want to incite the children. You want to teach them gently and so they understand in a gentle way, so they can empathize and so they can understand. So we have to be gentle. Thinking about your own kids, how you tell them something is tough. And how you would think, you have to think about how the children are feeling, how they are thinking when you're delivering this heavy topic. And it's important to be gentle. It's very important. It's a main thing because children will be angry or hurt or all kinds of mixed emotions because they don't know about the story. And so we have to teach them gently. The story needs to be told to everybody because we were children when we were taken over there. So we can teach them. It's okay to teach them, even if they're young.
Thank you, Diane. I want to mention that every time we worked on this project, we always had the late elder Rebecca Ross and the late elder Virginia Arthurson. They always wanted a candle burnt when we talked about this sensitive topic. When we gathered every meeting, they made sure that there was a candle burning, and the candle represented, you know, the children who passed on and our ancestors to see us as we're working and to work with us, that we'll be able to work in a good way, in a gentle way. And there again, like our First Nations, we're all very, very spiritual, very land, we're connected to the land and connected to everything that's living. We respect that. We respect everything that's living. So just gonna ask Melody what she feels, why she feels that we should be gentle when why teachers have to be gentle when they're teaching this as well.
So when teachers are teaching about residential school, they need to be aware that when you're teaching, you need to watch your students and be aware of the feelings that they're going through. And you know, one of the biggest things is giving them strategies on how to deal with the emotions that they're feeling. And a big part of that is the healing part. Giving them little ideas, like I'll give an example. Like for me, it would be taking a rock from Mother Earth, give it your anger, tell what you're feeling or your sadness, and just talk to it, because for us as First Nations people, those are animate. Our rocks are living. They're the oldest grandfathers around. So you can give all those feelings that you're feeling, and this is a strategy for your students and even for yourselves. You can put all your feelings into a rock and then give it back to Mother Earth. Put it back somewhere, if a special place for you. You can put it in the water, you can put it in the bush. You can, after you're done giving all your emotions to that rock, to that grandfather, then you're giving it back to Mother Earth. That's just a little gentle teaching that and strategy that you can use even for yourself, for anything that's bothering you and stuff. It's just a little teaching that people can use, and it's a gentle way to teach, and there's rocks all around us, so.
Yeah, when we were developing this, we would always start with a prayer, and we'd always end with a prayer. And at MFNERC, we do that when we're meeting. It doesn't matter what kind of meeting it is, we'll pray before we start and pray when we end. And that's being respectful, because to our ancestors and to the ancestors that sacrificed their lives for us. And so, so parting this coping mechanism when, when healing the students and when you're teaching this subject, and we were talking about how sensitive it has to be, how sensitive you have to be in teaching this. So I'm going on to the next question. I'm hoping that we don't go over time here. So Diane, I'm going to ask you, what impact do you want impact do you want with your residential school experience to have on the students in your video that you had, when you're talking about your experience, what impact do you want the students to have on that?
Well, today's children they're staying at home. They're going to school from home. And they come home after school to their parents. We didn't get that chance. When we left in September, we were gone till December. We came home for a week and then we're gone again. And this time from January to June. And today's children are so lucky. It's just like how awesome it is to be at home. How awesome it is to wake up in your own room with your family. That's the part that was taken. Being able to have a normal life because you're in an institution, you're in dormitories. When you go to eat at lunchtime or breakfast or supper, it's in a big dining hall. That's not home. It's very sad, big, open, lonely place. And today's kids, they don't have to experience that. They're lucky.
Thank you, Diane. I know in LeBret Residential School, in the education kit, I created a map of what the residential school actually looks like on the floors. And I just went by LeBret Residential School in Saskatchewan. And it was a very lonely place. When you first go there, everything is marble floored and it's really cold and, it's not very homey at all. And so having your language taken away, having your traditions taken away, praying taken away, and just having, like the churches just really imposed themselves on every residential school survivor. And we all have our own experiences with that. So I want to ask Melody a question on the books, Melody, that you created. How do you want that to impact the children that are going to be reading these books?
One thing I'd like to say is there are still some of our kids that have to leave their First Nations to go to school in high school. I know that a lot of them attend Cranberry Portage. There's still a school, some of our First Nations have to go there. So I'd like for the schools to try to use the books to show the difference even of from then to now, where you still can talk your language still. And we were very, very fortunate that some of our residential school survivors kept the language. But there are lots that didn't. But there are some that did, like Diane, like she's fluent in her Dene language. And but there are some of our survivors that don't have the languages at all. And then another thing is some of our survivors kept their language but didn't pass it down. But there's reasons for that. And that's one of the things I'd like for our students to know, that there's a reason we are the way we are. And with these books, maybe it'll give them a little, what's that word, like a little bit of information about why things are the way they are.
Yeah, I know for myself, I grew up around Cree. My mom's speaking Cree, and I grew up around Dakota, Assiniboine. And I could hear them speak, and I could understand. My mom spoke Soto and she spoke Cree, and I could understand, but I couldn't speak it. And today, you know, I can pick up here and there when my colleague Betsy Masijanon, she comes and visit with me. She talks in Dakota to me, and my language in Dakota is pretty similar to Dakota, so I can pick up words here and there, and we have laughs, and I understand her. And then it makes me feel good when I hear that language. I feel, you know, like I feel like I'm at home. So I'm really glad when she comes over, and it makes me feel good to hear her speak, and she'll just speak in Dakota to me. And so I'm slowly relearning my language. I'm a language learner, and you know, and then it's so I can relate to that, what Melody had just said. So with that, we're going to be winding down here. So we're going to close off, but before we close, I want to mention that there are teacher guides that go with the education, with all these books that Melody had wrote. There's teacher guides that go with it. And they're also part of a package of the Manitoba Residential School Education Kit. And there's 4 resources in that education kit, and they're bundles. There are 4 bundles from grades, from nursery to grade 12. And the first bundle is the Moxon bundle, Purpose and History. The second one is Our Stories bundle, Voices of Truth. And the third one is Orange Shirt bundle, Reconciliation and Action. And the fourth one is our Heart bundle, Our Healing Journey. So, you know, that's appropriate to conclude when we do teach about this. We always conclude in a good way, in a healing way, be whatever it is. You know, it's just acknowledging your inner self, and acknowledging that it's important to you know, give thanks that, you know, that we're healing and we're here to help one another. So you can also find all that information is on our website at Manitoba First Nation Education Resource Center. And it's also available at it's MFNERC.org, and you can also order it there as well. So I think we're going to have a question answer time here for Melody and Diane. So if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to just ask.
Hi, I just want to say how much I love McNally Robinson as an independent bookstore that's selling these books. And did you again say that website was MFNERC.org?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that's great. As teachers, I want to get a better understanding of, you know, part of MFNERC's, I guess, philosophy is First Nation people in control of First Nation education. So as teachers, and knowing the experience of residential school, how does that make you feel that you are working for it, or that whose philosophy is First Nation people delivering First Nation education?
So I guess I can answer that one. You know what? It's you feel proud because the content came from the stories of our Manitoba First Nation people, and now we have content that we can deliver to our schools and in our classrooms and our teachers, that it's ours now. We don't have to go out and look for other people's stuff. We will, like, they could still use other provinces' materials, but we have our own story. So I think it should be a proud time for MFNERC. And you know what, these books wouldn't have been created without the MFNERC guidance of the Director of Languages and Cultures, because he was the one who put the group together and put the residential school working group together. And we are just little pieces of that puzzle that worked on the contents of the box residential school kit that Doris mentioned.
I was gonna mention that because it took, like, I created a timeline for this, and most of the work is based on that timeline. And when Dumas came along, he was very encouraging to proceed with the process of putting this together. And for me, it seemed like it was going to be forever. So I literally cried when this was done, because it took so long and it took a lot of work. And we're very passionate about it. Our whole group is really passionate about it, because we did research and we did work with that. And it really means something to all of us. We put that in there, all of our work in each section. And all of us, it was an honor to work with all of them. Davin had advised us, and Jennifer, she advised us as well. It was really inspiring to work with professional teachers and professional, we're all professional in our own way. And even with the healing part, we all, it was, sometimes we left really heavy hearted, but we would still smudge and we'd still pray, and, and we still helped one another in a good way. So I'm really thankful for that. Thank you, Michael. Is there any other questions?
One of the first times that I ever learned about residential schools in school, I was in the 4th grade. And I remember our principal came up to our teacher and was like, should you really be teaching them about this? Like, don't you think they're a little young? And I remember being really proud of my teacher, because he went, of course they should. This is what happened in Canada, where they live. There are Native kids in our class. There are Native kids in this school, and their parents have grandparents and parents themselves that have also went to residential schools. And I remember being really proud of him for standing up for that. And I wondered if any other teachers had done that, and I wasn't sure if there were any. Do you think that more teachers should have been more open to standing up about the education at a younger age, or like starting that education from a younger age?
You guys answer. Diane?
Yes, it's important that they start teaching at a young age. Like I said earlier, right? These things happened to us when we were children. Some small. My little sister was only 5 years old when we left. And she wasn't gently told she was going to residential school. We were forced there. And you have to think of the kids that actually experienced it, and put yourself in their shoes. And the other, like, it doesn't matter what nation you are, we're all humans. We all have feelings. And when you learn about another culture, it opens your horizon. You see more, you see better. So I think it's important, very important.
Do you have anything to add, Melody?
Yeah, so I'm proud of your teacher, and I'm also proud of you for stating that that
Yeah.
you're proud of him
Yeah.
or her. That really touches the heart, because you know what, some people are even scared to teach about the residential school, and even some of our educators. But you know, Orange Shirt Day came along, and it really opened the eyes of a lot of our people across Canada. And Kamloops, when that happened, that's another eye opener. So it's starting to be more and more how do you say it, more and more things about residential school being taught. So it is starting to be mentioned in the schools, and I think it should start from the beginning, because if I look at the social study content, and there's little bits and parts where the social studies, the teachers can actually modify their social studies outcomes, and they can put the residential little teachings in about residential school in the social studies outcomes. Yeah, and you know, one thing that I want to mention too is I'm so proud of our MFNERC staff, and also the graphic artists that created the pictures and stuff in the books, because it gives some of us are visual learners too, so it'll give us a glance at some of the content in there.
I just wanted everybody to know that we're not far from a residential school. Just on Academy Road was a Senaboya residential school, just a block, like a block away from here. So, you know, it's really something to really educate yourself about, and I'm hoping that what Melody had shared with you tonight and Diane shared with you tonight, I hope it's really inspiring for you to further your knowledge in the history of Manitoba residential schools. Is there any more questions?
Hello, my name is Trevor Graz. I'm from First Nations Voice. So I'm a writer too. I'm working on another book. But I remember, 10 years ago, I was working on a project and I had to interview residential school survivors. And you know, me, big, strong, tough guy, you know, Makwa Totem, you know, after 3 weeks, I was having such nightmares from just interviewing these people, you know. Bless you for doing this, because, you know, I couldn't imagine revisiting that again. Did you go through a healing process before or after this, or is it ongoing?
It was actually ongoing. It had to be. One thing that that our office does is we're actually allowed to smudge, so that was really healing for me. And talking with, I know I talked with my mom quite a bit, and that was really good for my heart. And my mother-in-law was still here with us too, the late Diane Dumas. I would talk to her about little things, and with them sharing, it was healing for me. And I was able to see the clearer picture of while writing the books. So there was little things like the rock thing. There's other little things, strategies, and the healing part that I had to do while writing the books, because it was heavy on the heart. Yeah.
I just want to add something like what you just said. When the national residential schools workshop or conference happened here, and it was like a 5-day event or something, and people from all across Canada came to Winnipeg for this event, and a lot of people were videotaped there as well. They had a tent aside on the side where survivors can go and tell their stories. So they had the camera person, you know, the journalist, you know, the people to videotape the person. So anyways, on the last day, I said to my sister, my twin sister, I said, just go find that tent. So we We went to look for it. We found it. And I shall never forget this. The cameraman was sitting there, bawling his eyes out, bawling, crying. And I'm going like, and then I went up to him and I said, what happened? What happened? Why are you crying? And he said, the stories, oh my God, like, oh my God, like, oh my God, like he was so overwhelmed, so overcome. He says, I videotaped for the last 5 days. Yeah, I can't believe this, I can't believe this. He kept saying, and he was crying. And I said to him, I'm a residential school survivor. I said, can I offer you something? Can I say a little prayer for you? And he said, okay. So I just put my hand on him, on his shoulder, and I prayed a little prayer. And that really affected me because I didn't realize the impact of all these stories were having on people. And that opened my eyes. To me, it was inward because I lived it, I experienced it. But to see it like that on that young man, it like opened my eyes. Wow, people need to know about these stories I saw. Let's see, I just want to share that.
So is there any more questions?
Hi.
After we went to Cranberry Point, grade 12. That's the minor part of this story. What I would like to comment on is ladies in the books. You know, the way you presented what you've done, created, sort of gives me feeling years, all that stuff that happened. Your strategy in presenting that gentleness, use the word empathy, invites everyone to want to come, take greater interest. And the idea that the world should invite more people that experience curious learning. I think that's really plus really very popular. Little bit of trivia. That residential school academy, and that's where Phil Fontaine was. I just made genius book. She was a classmate. I couldn't leave without sharing this thought.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say that, you know, that we do everything in prayer and we acknowledge Creator. And when we're working on this book, it's through ceremony, our language. Our language is spiritual. And as a language learner, when I speak, it feels good. And, you know, working with teachers who can speak fluent, it feels good because you're reconnecting back. And that's what is the big difference with First Nations, is that we have that connection to our language and we have that connection to our culture and we have that connection to prayer and to Creator. So I want to just acknowledge that with MFNERC, that's what we do there. We acknowledge our ancestors and we acknowledge through prayer. We do everything in prayer in a good way with one another and in the work that we do. So is there any other questions tonight? Okay, if we don't have any questions, I would like to thank everyone for coming, and And just thank you for taking time to come out, and those of you that are out there watching online. And I just want to say Panamia to everyone, and thank you for hearing Melody and Diane, myself, and I was honored when I was asked to host this, and because I'm passionate about this as well. So thank you all. Panamia, you have a good evening.
And also a huge thank you to McNally and Robinson for
Yes.
hosting us.
Yes, this is cool.
To gently continue the gratitude. Thank you all so very much for sharing here tonight and for being here tonight. It's been a real privilege to listen to you all. Thank you all for your attention, for sharing as well, and for all of your questions. We will be moving along to the signing portion of the evening, so please, if you would like a copy of the book signed, please feel free to come over to the table. We'll get the signing set up and ensure that you walk out with one of these incredible books from Manitoba First Nations Resource and Education Center. Feel free to get it signed before you pay for it. Just please do remember to pay for a book before you leave the store. We're so very grateful, and so please do spend the night with you. Thank you all very much.